Virgil is one of the most well-known characters in Devil May Cry, and he is insanely powerful. So much so that he has his own version of the campaign in DMC5, where he does everything it took 3 Devil Hunters to do by himself. But how would he fare against the oppressive tide of demons if he could only rely on his human half? Today, I've decided to answer a question that nobody, except for this guy, has had. Can V thrash and struggle long enough to reunite with his other half and stave off the impending demonic invasion? Let's find out. But first, if you enjoy the content, you should subscribe. It helps me out a ton, and I have so many ideas cooking up that you're not gonna wanna miss. Now let's get back to it. We are using the Divergence mod to play as V for the entire 21 missions of the game on Dante Must Die, the hardest difficulty. Now, V can hardly walk down the stairs without falling over, but he's also got like a 10-foot vertical, so really this run could go either way. The first few missions are traditionally played through as Nero, the slayer of single targets. In contrast, V is the king of crowds, so anytime they put me up against more than 2 enemies at once, V actually performed better than his son. The most potent skill Griffin has is Blockade, a huge sweeping lightning attack, so the more demons they get caught up in it, the better. Similarly, Shadow has a move called Skewer where he does just that, skewers anything in front of him. Since it pierces, it could catch several foes at once, but even if it didn't, the damage was well worth it regardless. Finally, we had Nightmare, the gallant gelatinous beast that eats Devil Trigger to stay alive. While you can jump on his back to command him, I find it much better to simply let him do his thing, and his thing happens to be sending laser beams through crowds like he's Homelander. The overall major hurdle with V is that he doesn't actually do combos himself. He commands his pets from afar, which means they can get separated from you, like they did against Goliath. Early on, this boss collapses the roof you're fighting on and you both tumble into the chapel below. But the pets didn't follow me, so I had to do something a little unique to actually force them down off the roof. V can perform a side dodge with the help of Shadow, meaning the Panther jumps out next to V after the action is completed. To call Griffin to me, all I had to do was jump backward, and he would carry me away from danger. Hilariously, nothing can really bring Nightmare to you, so when Goliath brought the church down, he sealed my summon under a pile of rubble. You've probably seen V's unique Goliath finisher either in Mission 14 or the Bloody Palace, but did you know that it works just the same in Mission 2? Nightmare grows in size and David rides on his arm to pierce Goliath clean in one of his eye nips. The next mission went off without a hitch because the 10-foot vertical I mentioned meant that we would not be seeing the move that nobody has ever seen before. And because V is such a gentleman who understands the pain of falling, he kindly waited for Artemis to get up before absolutely shredding her entire body. There's this occurrence against Nidhogg that I've helped spread knowledge about, but I'm sure a fair amount of people still don't know that on DMD at low health, the boss will actually duplicate himself and bring down 3 clones to fight you very briefly. The exciting thing about that is they all take full damage and usually aren't devil triggered, so a well-timed blockade from Griffin tore through this parasite like lightning through a leech. A bad analogy. Pressing forward to Gilgamesh, you can immediately tell this boss was made for anyone whose name doesn't start with V and end with V. The pets basically couldn't get up to the core, and any attempt to bring them to me like before with a side dodge or back jump usually saw Shadow completely jump off the side of the metal monster or Griffin carry me too far and drop me all the way back down to the floor where he would promptly follow me down to. I took a moment to think about my next move as I aura farmed while balancing on this rail, and if the familiars weren't gonna help, then I'd just have to do it myself. V himself has a singular melee attack, a strike with his cane that, unless being used to finish off a demon, will bounce off of the enemy. It actually does pretty decent damage, it's just slow, leaves you vulnerable, and you could be doing anything else, like reading a book. Man, V is such a weird character now that I'm saying all that out loud. In this particular case, the cane had to be my main source of damage because not even Nightmare was pulling his weight. I really just had to bide my time though, because at a certain point, this hunk of junk turns into a car, and what do you do with cars? Ew, no Josh, what are you thinking? You ride them. Ew, no Joaquin Phoenix, what are you thinking? You ride them. Since he was lower to the ground and moving in a much more predictable way, Nightmare and Griffin were able to assist quite well, though the cane still reigns supreme here. I usually see Mission 7 as Nero's mission, but you always have the option to play as V here, it's just that I never do. So I got to go down a path I normally don't, which I do think is easier than Nero's route, mostly because the spaces you fight in are much more open, so you can get away from the threats while your pets do the work. By far, the most difficult encounter here is the Angelo fight at the end, because they are technically considered bosses and therefore have increased health. But all the health in the world doesn't matter when you get insta-killed. I don't really know the full specifics on how this works, but when there's a Proto and a bunch of Scudos out at the same time, you can do some things to break their stance, and it gives you a brief window to immediately finish them off with V. In this instance, Nightmare shot the Proto-Angelo up into the sky, and I caught him coming down with a Royal Fork, instantly ending his existence. With the biggest threat immediately being removed from the picture, the rest were quick to follow. For Nero's Mission 8, I found myself unable to cross the gaps that typically skip a few encounters. Unfortunately, that 10-foot vertical
was completely useless.
Since I was so unfamiliar with these extra encounters, I ended up taking a massive amount of damage and putting my health in dire straits for basically the entire rest of the level. Nightmare does have a neat feature that makes green orbs more likely to drop from enemies while he's on the field, but it's still just a chance, so my HP never ended up getting higher than half. Speaking of halves, it was time to take down V's other half, Urizen. He was glued to his chair, probably because he knew he'd fall if he got up, so he relied on casting magic instead. Usually that magic was a sweeping beam that Shadow ran directly into. He was trying his best, okay? Griffin was the MVP here though with Blockade, because Urizen's crystal barrier is so large that I'm pretty sure those lightning strikes were hitting multiple times. After breaking through to Urizen himself, he actually decided to stand up and he fell immediately. The next mission is one traditionally done by V, so I didn't expect anything interesting or unique to happen here, but these Judecas were determined to make it into the video. They performed an advanced technique called body blocking. I dodged the first one's thrust, but him being in my face meant that I didn't see his friend coming from behind with a follow-up. Such tactical genius deserves praise, so I had to mention— Wait, did he just try to attack a stone pillar? Alright, well, that's a little embarrassing. V handled Dante's first few missions with ease, but once we got to mission 12, I was forced to do some fights I normally avoid. I once again lacked the hops necessary to skip straight to each blood clot, so I had to go through the double Fury encounter as well as the Nobody/Baphomet battle. Fortunately, V had no trouble dispatching them, and we pressed forward to face someone V did have trouble dispatching, Standing Urizen. This boss gave me a ton of trouble, and V's difficulty fighting his other half is a complex metaphor for how one can never truly win a battle against themselves. I shed a manly tear. But you know what they say, third time's the charm. Mission 13 has the convenient option for you to choose any of the Devil Hunters as your champion, and it's essentially a sprint to the bottom. You gotta break some spawners to reveal the blood clots blocking your path, and you can otherwise completely ignore the enemies along the way. With V though, just trying to target those clots resulted in me wiping out almost every single enemy on the final floor. Oops. In what is usually Nero's last proper mission, you've got two paths laid out before you. Initially, I tried going down the lower path before I realized that I once again didn't have it in me to clear the necessary gaps. So instead, I had to go the top path filled with spikes. It wasn't that big of a deal. Malphus was quite susceptible to Shadow Skewer, and anytime the chicken went— hold on. If I'm down here, then who the hell is that up there? We're having fun here. See, isn't that the face of someone who's having fun here?
I hate it here.
V has a special power that was extremely useful against Cerberus. It's called infinite iframes. By dodging back and forth with Shadow, the enemy literally never has a window to damage him. This big mutt had massive attacks that often knocked my pets out, so constantly dodging and building Devil Trigger was the most effective strategy here, because once Nightmare came out, the other pets could no longer be sent to stalemate as long as the big man remained on the field. Finally, we had reached Urizen's ultimate form and needed to topple him one last time so that V could merge with his demonic half and become Virgil once more. And just like before, this fight was 10 billion times harder than anything else I had done. It's almost as if V's difficulty fighting his other half is a complex metaphor for how one can never truly win a battle against themselves. I shed a manly tear. And I shed another tear because I may have been a bit of an airhead and didn't capture the winning attempt. See, I took a break between failed fights, and when I came back, I totally forgot to start recording again until I beat the fight, looked over at OBS, and realized my mistake. So naturally, I went ahead and did the fight all over again to have it on footage. And what's this? V should have turned back into Virgil, but that imposter from earlier did it instead. So now it was up to me to track him down and bring Virgil back myself. But that meant I had to first clear Mission 18, which had me fight V's own pets. Thankfully, I still had full control of my own, and for a brief moment, I thought about doing a sort of mirror match where I would only use Griffin against Griffin, Shadow against Shadow, etc. But that idea went way out the window real fast. The boss versions are just better. So I summoned Nightmare to smite the bird and the cat until I reached the precipice, where my familiars kindly showed me what the floor tasted like. V's difficulty fighting these parts of himself is a complex metaphor for how one can truly never win a battle against themselves. I shed a manly tear. Seriously, it got very confusing. When one of the pets teleported next to me, I couldn't tell if it was friend or foe. This led me to genuinely try dodging attacks that my own familiars were doing, and sometimes not dodging attacks that the enemy sent out, because I thought they were friendly. It felt similar to walking around in a house of mirrors not being able to tell left from right. Though I gotta say, this was definitely the most stylish finish of the run. Now I just had to take down a true devil, Virgil. This was a hell of a fight. Remember, V is just a human and Virgil is, well, Virgil. This dude has the power to cut through space-time. I have a book. What the fuck? In fact, V's difficulty fighting his true form is a complex metaphor for how I bet you thought I was gonna say that whole line again, huh? Virgil was doing the most, and at times I felt powerless to stop him. I spent a lot of the fight at low health, and since V doesn't heal from Devil Trigger, the HP I had was the HP I got. Oftentimes, I had to rely on those infinite iframes I mentioned earlier because Virgil would actively target and eliminate the pets until I was helplessly alone. Once I hit phase 2 and he started Devil Triggering himself, it felt like my only real damage window was while Nightmare was out. The doppelganger he summoned in phase 3 was of little consequence thanks to V's rampant and unmitigated AoE, and after a few clutch dodges and one last Nightmare summon, we finally got to merge with Verge. Prepare to get dunked on. But the ritual was unsuccessful. The copycat still had too much sway over Virgil's body. I had to weaken him just a little bit more in Mission 20's battle. This fight was easy. There was no complex metaphor, he just took a knee quite often, which led to many skewers to the face, and I even mounted Nightmare to hit him with the...
1, 2, 3, ready? Miku Miku.
And that was it. So, can you beat Devil May Cry 5 if you could only pilot V? Yeah, of course you can. I still think it was interesting though to see how he fared on missions that weren't designed for him. I found that in a lot of them he actually excelled, but if there was even a single jump that was slightly too far or tall, no way, Jose. As far as actually controlling V the entire time, not as bad as you might expect. I think the thing that typically makes V feel kinda awful is the fact that you switch to him after playing as Nero or Dante. But that wasn't an issue in this run, so my brain never had to comprehend the fun that I could be having as any other character. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. So congrats, you've made it to the end of the video. Thank you, and also, are you subscribed? If I managed to keep you entertained for this long, you should be. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Sayonara.